Who you wish for is the most important decision you will make in your Genshin Impact account. Every character you choose to get determines a character you'll have to skip. And it is so difficult to figure out with all the noise. How do you actually figure out who you should wish for? Well, in this video, I'm going to give you my 3 steps so that you can decide who is best for you so you'll never regret a pull again. At least I hope so. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. The version Luna 6 banners featuring Nefer, Llama, and the Chronicled Wish are finally here. And if you're planning on spending on these or any future banners, let me recommend Loot Bar. Yes, Loot Bar is back. They use the most secure payment channels and support a huge number of games, including, of course, Genshin Impact. But you can also get in-game currency for Honkai Star Rail, Zenless Zone Zero, Arcanite's Enfield, Neverness to Everness, and more. They have 24/7 customer support always available, tens of thousands of 5-star reviews, and I personally use them for all of my gacha purchases, so your currencies can be bought with full confidence. It's very easy to use. Just click the pack you want, enter your in-game UID and region, and your top-up is delivered in seconds. Their enhanced infrastructure makes sure that even during peak times, your top-up will be delivered instantly. You can also get huge discounts for Steam keys, up to 80% off, and up to 20% cashback. Make sure to use my link down below and use the code LUCKUP for 5% off. It's partnerships like these that allow me to continue bringing the content that I do, as well as supporting my family, so thanks to Loot Bar for sponsoring the video. First things first, everyone's account is different and everyone's goals are different. If you want help for your specific account and your specific goals, feel free to join the Discord down below. But you may not even know where to start, so I think that you should start with step 1. Determine your goal. You may change your goal at some point, but at least I think having a goal in mind will help you a lot in determining where you need to go with your account and who is worth wishing on for you or not. Because as we know, there's limited primo gems. It would be nice if there were enough for everyone to get every character. I do think there are just not quite enough pulls, especially with so many new archetypes coming out all the time, supports being less universal than ever, but there's nothing we can do about that. So we'll start with the possible goals. I think there's 2 sort of meta goals that I've seen floating around. There's meta focused on power, and then there's a different type of meta that I've seen creeping up in discussions that I don't think is very popular, but I've been seeing it enough that I want to talk about it anyway. The most popular one, at least on the polls that I've done on my account, is people are interested in power. They're interested in clearing Fearless or Dire or Menacing for Stygian, or they're trying to get so many stars in the Abyss, 36 stars, whatever. I first want to give you permission that you don't have to care about this. I care about it. My current personal goal for my personal part of my account, I have like a section of my account. Now that I've done so much testing with my favorite characters on the DPS dummy, I've activated a couple constellations, and I'm having a lot of fun with my personal goal of clearing Dire. I'm not saying that you should care about this. I think most players do not have the luxury. I acknowledge that I'm privileged, obviously, to have the account that I do, and my goal is to clear Dire with my favorites, at least mostly my favorites, at least Cloran and Skirk. So this was a lot of fun. Previously, my goal was to clear Fearless with my favorites, and that's a lot of fun for me. I really enjoy all of that. I was able to do Dire with C0, R0 on the first one. I probably could have kept doing it, but it just became not as much fun. I'm the kind of player that if I were to not be a content creator, my goal wouldn't be Dire, it would be Fearless. It would be to clear Fearless and focus on doing it with my favorite characters. So that would inform how I'm going to pull. That doesn't have to be your goal. You get all the primo gems from Stygian Onslaught just from hard. And even for Menacing, you can still do it in co-op. And hard you can do it in co-op. And hard you can use the same team multiple times. And so you can get one feather, one of the 2 feathers, I guess 2 of the 3 feathers actually available from Stygian, from really not worrying about meta at all. So most of the rewards you don't need Fearless for at all. And I think most people, if you just sort of build up your account, eventually you'll be able to clear at least Menacing, get most of the rewards, all of the primo gems, without ever stressing about meta and power. And I think that this is really, really good design. So some people will say, well, yeah, primos aren't available in Fearless, but they're available in the lunar mode for Imaginarium Theater. You should pull so that you can get the primos from lunar mode in Imaginarium Theater. To me, I think you know, hey, clearing lunar mode in the Imaginarium Theater is a really cool goal. I find Imaginarium Theater a really, really fun endgame mode. I really, really enjoy it every single reset. Of course, again, I have every single character, so it does make sense that I would enjoy being able to use them all. And it really is fun to me to build up all the characters. I imagine that even if I wasn't a content creator, I would personally still love lunar mode because it would give me incentive to build up my underutilized characters. And I probably honestly would pull to not only be able to clear Fearless, to clear 36 stars in the Abyss, and to clear lunar mode in Imaginarium Theater. I probably would pull for it. That's just the kind of person I am. I would determine that Dire is for whales, and for me it would be Fearless, lunar mode, and 36 star. I would personally have that goal, and I would have the goal to do it with my favorite characters, or at least most of my favorite, or some of my favorite characters. But that doesn't have to be your goal. I think that pulling for lunar mode in Imaginarium Theater, or any Imaginarium Theater, if it's for the primos, is a really bad idea. I think that all of these difficult endgame modes, 36 stars, Fearless, Dire, lunar mode, all of it should be done just for the pride and satisfaction of it. Of course, the rewards are there to get you excited and to give you a reward for doing it, but it should really mostly be done just for the pride of doing it, in my opinion, because the rewards do not justify the cost. Spending any amount of primo gems to make back the paltry amount that you get from lunar mode that you couldn't get from the regular mode, sure, there's a few pulls in there, but you're spending way more than a few pulls to clear it if you are spending to clear it. So give yourself permission to forget about clearing for the sake of pulls. The goals should be for your own internal motivation. Another possible goal you could have is to make cool teams for every archetype. I think this is a really, really neat goal. It's so neat that I spent a bit of time just sort of brainstorming this list. I think I'll make a pretty cool list one day, and my next tier list will probably be a teams tier list, and it will have archetypes on it of the different teams that belong in each archetype, and that's what I'm aiming towards. For now, I just sort of have this sort of haphazard list of archetypes. There's the Freeze archetype, and you basically unlock the archetype by getting a Scoffier. There's the Lunar Charge archetype, you basically unlock it by getting an Epha. The Overloaded archetype is unlocked from Chevreuse. And I think if it's attractive to you to build all the different types of teams and test them out, I think that this kind of pulling is going to be really good and really effective. If the Burning archetype is unlocked by Emily, I don't know about pulling for Emily to unlock the Burn archetype because it's a pretty sort of lame archetype, but I think that this is not a terrible idea if you had extra pulls and you want to have a burning team for the sake of having a burning team. Again, I know people are really used to meta recommendations. So like, how could you recommend Emily? Well, she sort of unlocks burning teams for characters. And yeah, it might not be a lot of characters' best characters, but it might be sort of cool to you to unlock the burning archetype by having Emily on your account, because otherwise you can't really do burning. You can do it with Kenichi, of course, but I think if your goal is to unlock archetypes, it'd be better to unlock the burning with Emily and then play it with your DPS, whether that would be maybe a Moika burn, maybe Arlecchino burn, maybe Chlorant quick burn is a thing that you could theoretically do. And rather than just getting Kenichi as your burning archetype, it'd be better to get the support. See, Lali essentially unlocks Melt. There's no character specifically that unlocks Vaporize. I think utilizing any Pyro DPS and Xingqiu or something, Yelan if you have her, is good for Vape. Lunar Crystallize is unlocked best, I think, by Linnea, although Zabai is perfectly good as well, but same argument as for Emily. And Inefa, I think going for the support so you can have more variety in the on-field DPS. I think for someone whose goal is to unlock the archetype, going for the support first is a better idea. Other Geo, there's no specific character that unlocks it. Other characters do Geo, whether it would be Ito or Navia or Chiori, but most of them are better in Lunar Crystallize anyways, or someone like Albedo, they work with the Hexorite stuff. It's fine, but I think you don't need a specific character to unlock that for yourself. If you get Lunar Crystallize, you're doing Geo. Bloom, I think Lauma makes sense. Obviously, she's best in Lunar Bloom, but she also works in Hyper Bloom, Nilou Bloom, all the types of Bloom you could want. Lauma is your gal, and then I think Kuki is just standard for Hyper Bloom. For Aggravate, I think going just the free-to-play route is the best. And then there's the flexible support section. So we've got flexible that are often still meta or close to meta. I know some people might argue about Shilonen falling off a little bit, but I think for the majority of players, hey, I cleared Dire with Shilonen, just today. Yeah, I used a C6 Chlorant, so that doesn't really count. Okay, I get it. It doesn't count. I'm a whale. I know. It's fine. But I still think for the more casual player looking to unlock different things, Xilonen will probably be more valuable than not. But if you want to put her down here, I'm fine with that. It's whatever. I was a little more lenient with the 4 stars like Mona, or the 5 stars like Mona and, or the 4 stars or the standard banner 5 stars like Mona and Yansan. Because even though they are a little bit more niche, they're still flexible enough that I want to put them in here just because I want to show their value, and that if you don't have them, you should get them, and if you have them, you should build them. I think Columbina is a must-pull flexible character for all the lunar archetypes. Sucrose must-build character for so many archetypes in the game. Fischl, Aggravate, Overloaded, just a general very good character. Farina still finds her way onto many, many teams despite her sort of aging out or aging not what seems like it shouldn't be very well, but then she ends up appearing on like every Stygian anyways. Bennett still very good. Durin, not part of the super meta, but still part of a ton of different team cores. Nicole, about to come out, I think, especially for this type of player who's looking to build a ton of different teams, having a team-wide attack buffer and having a strong shield is going to be really nice. Imagine Zhongli, but it's like imagine Zhongli and Bennett combined. Sure, Bennett's not used on as many teams as anymore, so you could get away with these characters. You could get away with, I would say that we could almost do like a must-pull category, maybe something like this. I like this. Would I put Farina in the must-pull? I think if your goal is to build a lot of team archetypes, I think Farina is just still too valuable to not put up here. Whether it's for freeze, like so many reactions need hydro that if you don't pull for someone like Farina, you're going to run out. Freeze, Lunar Charge, Vape, Lunar Crystallize, Bloom, other teams, I think you're going to struggle if you don't have Farina. But if you wanted to put her here, it's fine. Kind of same with Xilonen. If the more hyper meta pilled you are, the more you might want to put her here. But I think here is still very good. And then Moika, just so good for so many archetypes as a DPS and as a support. Such a good variety pull to run on different teams. Same with Xilonen. And then there's flexible, outdated, but still solid. So I would say that characters Yelan, Kazuha, Xingqiu, Xiangling, probably some more that I'm missing and forgetting. They're outdated, but they're still solid. I think Zhongli and Shenyan, although they do have their sort of niche, Zhongli I feel like is just replaced. I feel like Nicole's shield is good enough and her buffing is so much better that you should just not bother with Zhongli. And then I feel like Shenyan's plunge, although universal, is not strong enough to warrant pulling her. If you really want to plunge, just use Gaming or Varesa. I don't think Varka's kit is unique enough to like warrant getting him just for swirl. I think swirling with Sucrose on a Lunar Charge team or something is perfectly serviceable as a swirl team. So yeah, that's what I think of the pulling for archetypes goal. And then there's also max your favorite character as a goal. I could see this being a totally valuable goal. Like I said, I would sort of be a hybrid of this one, and this one. I feel like this I'm not as concerned about. I think it'll just happen by default for me. But maxing your favorite character can be a totally viable goal. It can conflict though with the meta goals. So that's why you have to sort of determine what is more important to you. Because it works out if your favorite character happens to be meta, but what if they're not? And maxing your favorite character is a little bit tricky because some characters are better off being wheelchaired, aka you pull new supports to sort of carry them, and some characters are better to be vertically invested in, meaning you get constellations or weapons or good teammate constellations or weapons to support them. And depending on the character, either strategy can be better. If the character is super old, pre-Fontaine, it is almost always better to wheelchair them. Getting constellations for the super old characters, even characters that at the time had really good constellations like Raiden, it's just going to be a rough time. Like sure, C2 is going to really improve your damage, but compared to modern characters, getting constellations on Durin is going to be a lot more valuable, for example. Wheelchair also has the ability of allowing you to clear shield content, but brute forcing with good constellations can also be valuable. Characters like Novelette are sort of like on the fence right now, whether it's more worth it to invest in more teams for him or the vertical investment for him. I'd say the more serious you are about Novelette specifically, the more you want to invest in his constellations. And I think you kind of have to go almost on a character by character basis. So you have to check out my guides, check out the Keqing main guides, check out the Genshin Noir. But I think that generally if your main has really, really good early constellations and their Fontaine are newer, getting their early constellations should probably be your priority if you really want to make your favorites shine. And I think that you probably would enjoy that the most. Getting C1, R1, C2 Novelette, C1 and C2 Farina, R1 for Navia, C2 R1 for Arlecchino, C2 R1 for Clorand, C2 R1 Mualani, C2 R1 Kinich, C2R1 Chaska, C2R1 Moika, C2 Citlali, C2R1 Barisa. Her cons aren't as good, but you really want those 4 stars. You know, C2R1 Skirk, C2 Lauma, C2R1 Flints. They really, basically any new character has a really good C2R1. I'm not saying you have to go all the way to C2R1 for each of these characters. Obviously, getting any amount of any of those constellations is usually going to be a substantial upgrade, and you should follow the character investment priority specifically. On all my updated guides, I do rank all of the early upgrades for all of them, and they're mostly very impactful. And getting those things plus a team that actually synergizes with them and doesn't just do damage from off field while they're cosmetically on field is generally going to be a really good idea. I think the only time it gets tricky again is with the older characters that they don't really have defined teams, and it switches with every new update. It switches again. So like you might be chasing around other characters' best teams for a really long time because, oh, now Novalet's best team is Lunar. Oh, now it's Lunar Crystallized, now it's Lunar Bloom, now it's, well, it wasn't really Lunar Crystallized, obviously, but the point being is it's if your character's getting an upgrade every patch, it's more expensive to keep up with that upgrade every patch than it is to just invest in some early vertical investment on those characters and stick with their more hyper carry oriented teams. Okay, so those are the goals. I think the second step is to determine your starting point, because it does matter if you're a total beginner, if you're a veteran who took a break and came back, or if you're an ongoing player. I did make this little sheet. I think it's mostly for me because I think it's too convoluted to go into each thing and kind of explain it, all of that, because I've already explained the different goals, but how does where you start affect each of these goals? Well, if you're a total beginner, it's going to be a long time before you can really invest in the meta. And that means that you should before you catch up to the meta, before your account can actually clear endgame content. And that's why all of your pulls, also there's the goal of just chilling and enjoying the game and just pulling whoever you want. But of course, then you don't need this video because you could just chill and enjoy the game however you want. But yeah, if you're a total beginner and you want to catch up to the meta, the number one thing that you need to do is assemble one lunar team. One. Not more than one, just one. It's not terrible to get a flexible character like Inefa on top of your lunar team. It's not terrible to get Lauma so you can do Lunar Bloom. It's not terrible to get Linnea for Lunar Crystallized, but in my opinion, if you care about meta and clearing Fearless, Stygian, in the long run, getting supports, just supports, isn't going to cut it for clearing hard content. You want to assemble just one lunar team. So you need Columbina, that's a must pull. Then you pick either Nefer or Flints or Zabai, and you get their support, either Lama or Inefa or Linnea. Which one of them should you get? I think the default answer is Zabai because she has the highest ceiling and she's the easiest and comfiest to play. She's the least reliant on your support and she has some of the most flexible teams. So overall, Zabai is the obvious choice. But Flints is also very easy to play and Inefa is very flexible. And Flints is a little bit flexible as a team as well. So he can be a great choice as well. His power ceiling just isn't quite as high. And you really, really do need both of these characters to really reach a super high peak with this. Nefer has almost as high of a ceiling as Zabai, but she's more tricky to play. And without Lama C1, doesn't really have a proper healer. So she sort of has a bit of downside compared to Zabai, whereas Zabai is all upside. But for the right player who really enjoys Nefer, and you're willing to get, say, Lauma C1, those downsides are basically completely mitigated. And I just think that the downsides of any of them are not really big enough to justify ixnaying any of them. So yeah, get Columbina and then pick one of these three pairs and any of them is fine. In my opinion, I think it's still very much worth it to go for one of the lunar DPSs. All three of them are the strongest teams in the game at this point, and I think that the Lunar Shill will continue throughout Snezhnaya. So I think focusing on assembling one of these three teams, this one, or this one, whether you're a new player, returning player, or an ongoing player, getting one of these three teams and investing in it is worth it. If you have a mix of these, don't worry about the past. Focus on strengthening one of them. Don't try and build them all. Just finish building one of them, whichever one is your favorite. And also make sure you enjoy the playstyle of whatever DPS you like best. Personally, I enjoy Nefer the most, then Zabai, then Flints, but a lot of people enjoy Flints more, so it's totally up to you. Then from there, if your goal is to pull for meta, again, so first step, assemble a lunar team. Second step is make sure you have some savings going into Snezhnaya to assemble a stellar team. I think based on what we know so far, and we have a few videos that sort of go over this, the Sandrone video, the Rhymegrass video, the Stellar Conduct video, all of them sort of point towards stellar conduct and just the stellar reactions being quite similar to the lunar mechanic. I anticipate it being a very good idea to assemble one of those teams, one of the stellar teams moving forward. So keep an eye on assembling one of these teams. The newer you are, the more important it is that you do that, because you don't have the option to brute force anything because you don't have any old stuff. So assembling one of the stellar reaction teams at least, and depending, I'll let you know as we learn more how it ends up, but assembling one of the stellar reaction teams I think is going to be very smart for the future. And if you're a beginner, this part might not apply to you. If you're a returning player or if you're an ongoing player, it depends on sort of what you have. There are some characters that are still quite meta. Skirk is still quite meta. Skirk and Escoffier still very meta. Varesa is still very meta. Moika is still very meta. Varka is becoming meta. Mualani can be meta, at least as much as Varesa, or maybe we'll make it like this. Because I think it is valuable if you're a returning player or if you're an ongoing player to have a team or two that does not rely on lunar reactions or stellar reactions. They're just good at clearing content. So Varesa, so there's still meta with Skirk in her normal team. Moika in her normal team, we'll take Escoffier there, off of there. Varesa, as long as you assemble her C6 4-star squad. Mualani, if you have a con or two. Varka, if you assemble his premium team. Keqing, if you give him Nicole, maybe a constellation or two. You could probably throw Arlecchino up there if you give her a constellation or two. We're getting a bit more cope, I would say. You know, Arlecchino with a bit more investment. Cloran, this is Keqing if the Nicole stuff comes true, right? Maybe you put him down here. Maybe you put Chaska down here. Maybe you put Novelette down here. Just different characters that if you invest more into them, they can clear more stuff for you. Klee is up here now, which is kind of crazy. Maybe even here. We'll see after Nicole releases. I don't want to jump the gun. Maybe Navia. We're getting more cope though. These are not these are not characters that I would recommend pulling for. These are characters that if you already have, it could be worth it to pull something so that you can use them, or to get one more con for them to make them properly viable. It could be worth it. I don't know if it is. It depends on your account. It depends on what's going on. Like, say you have Chaska in her weapon and you really love Chaska, it could be worth going for a C2 Chaska so you can consistently clear Fearless with her because she's very flexible. That could legitimately be worth it for you, especially if you mix in, you want to max your favorite character a little bit, right? You obviously pulled C1R1 Chaska. Now coming back to the game, is she Pyrocrypt? Well, kind of, but maybe you want to go for C2, right? That kind of idea. If you already have C1 Novelette, you know, maybe getting his weapons worth. If you already have a C1 Keqing, maybe getting his C2, maybe getting Nicole, it's worth it. It becomes very, very account dependent. If you're a player returning to the game, should I invest more in my older character? Maybe you should drop them for something newer, especially if you're low on pulls, you don't have any lunar stuff, focus on the lunar stuff first. But if you're able to get that, if you have extra resources, maybe assembling teams for your other characters could be worth it. Maybe not, maybe just saving for Shenhe Nahida coming up. I don't like investing in the future, but I do want to put it in your ear that it's possible that Nicole and Durin, or maybe just Nicole, will work with the new Shenhe Nahida stuff. In my Sendrone video, it seems to me that Nicole might have pretty good synergy with Sendrone, and therefore possibly maybe she has good synergy with Shenhe Nahida teams. She also might not. She also could just work with the current stuff. So keep an eye on Nicole moving forward, because maybe she'll be better than we think with future teams. Maybe they're balancing a little bit around future stuff, or maybe she's just is what she is right now. But we should have a pretty good idea by the time her banner actually rolls around, because we'll have Sendrone leaks, and that should give us an idea of what's going to properly happen with Shenhe Nahida. So that, I think, determines meta, how to go about pulling for meta. If you're a total beginner, focus on lunar and stellar. If you're a veteran who took a break, focus on lunar and stellar, and then look into your current characters to see what you have, to see if any of them could be worth investing more into. And if you're an ongoing player, focus on one lunar team, shoring up one lunar team. If it's broken, if you have a bunch of different pieces, focus on one, and then maybe finish up another piece like Skirk or Moika, finish up that team or get a weapon for it or something like that. Personally, I think the sweet spot for Fearless, which a lot of people's meta goal is sort of C0R1 premium team. You don't really need C2R1, that's sort of more of a dire thing, but C0R1 of meta characters is sort of the sweet spot for a good Fearless clear. Of course, that does require really good builds and decent play, so you don't want to go overly investing. When I say invest, it's in a con or two, or a weapon, or a weapon and a con. Don't go crazy unless your goal is dire, or you have extra resources, or your characters are kind of older and they need it, like Cloran sort of needs her C2R1. If your goal is lunar mode, So if you're a total beginner and you want to be able to clear lunar mode, that's just be prepared to wait a really, really long time. You know, you can consider some of these characters, right? The characters that have different archetypes and the different flexibilities. I think that this is like a decent resource for players wanting to expand their Imaginarium Theater roster, if that's your goal, and most likely just building up as many 4-stars as you have. Go to the Lunaris website, check out the Imaginarium Theater. Oh, it's down. Well, never mind then. I think more or less, as long as you don't pull too many of the same character and you don't pull too many constellations, the same element. If you don't pull too many cryo characters, too many electro characters, and that's like the only thing you pull, and as long as you don't pull too many constellations and weapons, eventually you're going to be able to do all the Imaginarium Theaters and you build all your 4-stars. Eventually you'll be able to do it. I don't think that you need to pull specifically for it. But of course, that can prevent you from pulling a really strong weapon or constellation, which might make it harder to clear Fearless. So I understand these two are a little bit at odds, and that's where Genshin wants you, because they want you to eventually spend so that you can both have lots of characters and get a constellation here too, because they make them very tempting these days. I don't think making cool team archetypes really matters with if you're a beginner, a veteran, or an ongoing player. You're just pulling for the archetypes. And same with maxing your favorite character. It really doesn't matter who you are, but yeah, you just focus on maxing that character. So let me know your thoughts. These types of videos where I'm trying to give direction to a broad amount of people who might have different goals are always very tricky. But I think we did a decent job of explaining that you should have a goal, you should determine your starting point, and you should really think deeply about where you are on what you actually care about in the game, what do you want to get out of the game, and tailor your plan based on what you have, based on your goal to that. And of course, again, join the Discord if you'd like more help figuring that out. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. And if you don't want to do that, it's totally fine. Just watching the video has been more than enough. Thanks so much. Bye for now.